Hey there, fantasy owners. Welcome to Lift the Cup Fantasy, or LTC Fantasy as some call it. We're going to continue along with our 21-22 team fantasy reviews here, and we're going to look at the Calgary Flames. Who led them in different stats for goalies, defensemen, and forwards. We're also going to look at who was the biggest disappointment fantasy-wise, who was the biggest surprise, and who was relevant on their roster on a weekly basis, not just a streaming basis. Reviews continue to roll out every few days, so don't forget to subscribe. That way you can catch your favorite team's review, maybe your rival's review, maybe you want to catch all 32, or just look at some teams that you kind of sometimes get overlooked in the fantasy world. So we'll get right into it. Goalies, it was basically Markstrom. He led them in games played at 63, wins with 37, goals against average at 2.22, and save percentage at 922. Basically, Markstrom did it all for the Flames this year. He had a really great season, and he truly was a great fantasy asset if you did have him on your roster. We'll get into some defensemen. It was more of a committee type thing, but goals, it was Noah Hannafin at 10. Rasmus Andersson led him in assists at 46 and points at 50. Plus minus, a leader was Chris Tanev at plus 35. Nikita Zadorov led him in hits at 181. Chris Tanev led him in blocks also at 158 blocks. It's quite a few blocks. And shots on goal, no surprise. The one leading him in goals also leads him in shots at 189. Just like the stats show, it really was a committee approach with the defense this year. They had a really great season, and different people knew their roles and did well for them. Moving along to forwards, goals was Tkachuk and Lindholm. They tied at 42 each. Johnny Gaudreau led him in assists at 75. He also led him in points at 115. Plus minus, it was amazing. Johnny Gaudreau at plus 64. Just great if plus minus was counted in your league there. Hits was Milan Lucic, 209 hits, and he didn't get a whole bunch of ice time, but he got a fair bunch playing in third, sometimes fourth line role. 209 hits. Definitely throws that big body around. Blocks was Elias Lindholm for forwards. No surprise there. He is a Selke candidate. 52 blocks. And Johnny Gaudreau led him in shots on goal. That was kind of surprising at 262, because you really think of him more as a pass-first guy, and he led the team in shots this year. For moving along to biggest fantasy disappointment, for me it was Blake Coleman. Not that he had a bad season. The season Calgary had, you kind of got to be a little nitpicky to find a disappointment, but he had 16 goals, 17 assists for 33 points in 81 games. Just with signing that big contract, you'd kind of hope he'd hit the 20-goal plateau. He close at 16, but didn't quite get there. You're just kind of expecting more from him if you wanted to be a little nitpicky. Biggest surprise for me was Johnny Gaudreau. You know he's the best offensive player on the Flames, but he really exploded. He had 115 points career high. He had 40 goals, which is very, very surprising when he is known as being a pass-first guy. You know he was going to be good for 25 to 30, but to explode for 40 was absolutely great on him. Fantasy relevant players on a weekly basis. Obviously, there's a few here with the season they had. You got Markstrom in the back, in the net there. He's really, really solid. On defense, you got Rasmus Andersson. He really did it all. He didn't lead in every category, but he's very well-rounded defenseman. And up front, obviously, their big three, and Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau. They all had great seasons. Gaudreau obviously had 40 goals. Tkachuk broke the 100-point plateau, tied in goals for the team with 42, and Lindholm led him in blocks. He had 42 goals and was right up there in points. And other players that were good for streamers, you could look at Mangiapane, Toffoli. Hannafin had a really good season. I just look at those three more as streamers than a player that you'd want on your roster week in, week out. Really do hope you did enjoy the episode. We'll be out in a few days again with the Carolina Hurricanes. If you did like it, remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and remember that notification bell. And enjoy the playoffs, watch them, and enjoy your offseason, fantasy owners.